Somebody just made it your job. We need a cybersecurity risk assessment. Maybe an auditor asked, maybe the insurer demanded it, maybe the board finally noticed the headlines, and you're staring at a blank spreadsheet. Good news, there's a standard way to do this, and it's free. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, the playbook used in over 185 countries, downloaded more than 2 million times. This video is the step-by-step version nobody handed you. The current framework, CSF 2.0, turned into 5 concrete steps, with a running example company so nothing stays abstract. Meet the example, Meridian, a fictional 200-person software company. Customer data in the cloud, a payment flow, remote laptops, and exactly one overworked security person. Probably sounds familiar. By the end, you'll have Meridian's complete assessment, inventory, scored risks, register heat map, and the one-page summary that gets budget approved as the template for your own. One boundary before we start, because these get confused constantly. A risk assessment is not a penetration test and not an audit. It's the map that tells you where those are worth doing later. No GRC platform required, a spreadsheet, this framework, and about 2 working days. Let's go. 30 seconds of orientation, because version 2.0 changed things and half the internet's tutorials are outdated. The framework now has 6 functions, and the new one changes the politics of your job. Govern is the new 6th function, and it's aimed at the top floor. Leadership sets the risk appetite, owns the policies, and reviews the outcomes. Cybersecurity risk is now formally a business risk. Identify is where your assessment lives. Know what you have and what threatens it. Protect covers the safeguards, the access control, encryption, and training. Detect means spotting trouble in hours, not months. Respond is containment and communication when it happens. Recover is restoring service and feeding the lessons back into the register. Underneath sit 22 categories and 106 subcategories, a checklist library you'll sample from, not a to-do list you must finish. Nobody implements all of it in year 1. To make subcategory concrete, one of them simply says identities and credentials are managed for all users and devices. Plain English requirements like that, 106 of them grouped for sampling. And 2.0 applies to every organization now, not just power plants, which is exactly why your insurer suddenly speaks this language. NIST even ships free quick start guides as of this year. One more framework concept that turns out to be the most useful of all, profiles. A profile is just an honest snapshot of where you stand against the functions. You build 2, the current profile, what Meridian actually does today, multi-factor on email, yes, tested backups, no, offboarding checklist, what offboarding checklist. And the target profile, what leadership agrees you should do within a year, given the risk appetite from the governed conversation and the budget that exists in reality. The gap between those 2 profiles is your security roadmap, and when the register's heat map and the profile gap point at the same 3 things, you know the assessment is telling the truth. The framework also grades how you work, with 4 implementation tiers, from ad hoc firefighting at Tier 1 to adaptive at Tier 4. Most companies start honest at Tier 1 or 2 and target 3, that's normal. If you want the deeper methodology behind the scoring we're about to do, NIST Special Publication 800-30 is the free companion. But everything in this video stands on its own. Step 1. Inventory. You cannot score risks to things you haven't listed, and this is where most first assessments quietly die, by trying to list everything. Use the crown jewels method instead. Ask what, if lost, stolen, or locked, would genuinely hurt this company, and stop at the top 10 or 15 answers. Meridian's list: the customer database, the production cloud account, the payment flow, the source code, the email tenant, employee laptops, and everyone forgets this one, the payroll and HR software. For each asset, record 3 things: where it lives, what data class it holds, public, internal, confidential, regulated, and who owns it. An asset without a named owner is an orphan nobody will protect. Hunting tip for the assets nobody mentions: pull 3 months of expense reports and look for software subscriptions. Shadow IT always shows up in the receipts before it shows up in any inventory. Practical truth: a spreadsheet you actually maintain beats the asset management platform you bought and abandoned. Update it quarterly, put the calendar invite in now. Step 2. For each crown jewel, write the realistic threat scenarios and score them. The workhorse method is a 5x5 matrix, likelihood times impact. Likelihood 1 to 5. How plausible is this scenario for US this year, informed by the breach data we've covered all series? Phishing, stolen credentials, ransomware misconfigurations. Anchor the numbers so 2 people score alike. 5 means we'd expect this within a year, 3 means plausible within 3 years, 1 means we'd be surprised inside 5. Write the anchors at the top of the sheet. Impact 1 to 5. If it happens, how bad, measured in downtime, money, legal exposure, and customer trust. Be honest, a 5 means existential. Anchor impact in your own numbers too. For Meridian, 1 is under $10,000 of pain, 3 is 6 figures or a week of disruption, 5 threatens the company's survival or its regulated data. Meridian scores ransomware via phishing at likelihood 5, impact 4 20 out of 25. Customer database breach via stolen credentials, 4 times 4 16. Unencrypted laptop stolen, 2 times 3 6. When scorers disagree, engineering says 2, support says 4, don't average silently. Talk. The support lead usually knows about the near-miss engineering never heard of. Disagreement is data. You'll hear about the quantitative alternative, FAIR, which models loss in actual dollar ranges instead of 1 to 5 scores. It's genuinely better for convincing finance people and roughly 10 times the work. The pragmatic play, qualitative for the full first pass, then quantify only your top 3 risks in dollars when you need budget ammunition. Best of both without drowning. Step 3. Everything lands in the risk register, the single document this whole exercise produces. 9 columns, and you can build it in any spreadsheet today. Asset threat scenario, likelihood impact score, that's the scoring half straight from step 2. Then existing controls, what already stands between you and the scenario. Writing these down often reveals the control you assumed exists, doesn't. Then the treatment decision, one of exactly 4 words. Mitigate, reduce it with controls. Accept, live with it in writing. Transfer, insure it. Or avoid, stop doing the risky thing entirely. One governance rule that keeps everyone honest. An accepted risk gets signed by the business owner of that function, not by security. If sales wants to accept the risk, sales signs the line. And finally, an owner and a review date for every single row. A register without owners and dates isn't a plan, it's a wish list with formatting. Before the heat map, the 5 mistakes that sink most first assessments. Skip these and you're ahead of half the consultants. Mistake 1. Scoring everything 4 and 5 because fear feels rigorous. If everything is critical, nothing is force rank until the top 5 are genuinely alone at the top. Mistake 2. Confusing vulnerabilities with risks. The server is unpatched is a condition. An attacker exploits that server to reach the customer database is a risk you can score and treat. Mistake 3. Scoring alone at your desk. Run it as a 1-hour workshop with the asset owners. The engineering lead knows failure modes you don't, and the workshop makes them co-owners of the results. Mistake 4. Treating accept as failure. Consciously accepting a small risk in writing is mature risk management. Pretending you'll mitigate 200 things is the actual failure. And mistake 5. The register that dies after the kickoff meeting. That's why every row carries a review date, and why step 5 aims this whole thing at the board's calendar, not a shared drive's graveyard. And no, you don't need visualization software. Conditional formatting on the score column turns the spreadsheet itself into the heat map. Red above 15, amber above 8, green below. Step 4. Turn the register into decisions. Plot every risk on the likelihood impact grid and the picture makes the argument for you. Meridian's ransomware scenario tops the board at 20. That's not a surprise, it's confirmation the method reflects reality, since ransomware dominates real-world small business breach data. The credential theft scenario at 16 and the cloud misconfiguration at 12 fill out the top right of the map, the quadrant that simply is next quarter's security roadmap. Then split that quadrant into quick wins versus projects. Turning on multi-factor and disk encryption, quick wins this month. Network segmentation, a project this quarter. Both get owners, only one gets a project plan. After treatments land, rescore, that's residual risk. Showing ransomware falling from 20 to 12 on the same map is the single most persuasive picture you will ever put in front of leadership. And the offboarding gap at 9, that's a policy and a checklist practically free. Low score doesn't always mean low priority when the fix costs an afternoon. Step 5, the page that decides whether any of this gets funded, the executive summary. 1 page, business language, no acronyms you'd have to define. Block 1, the top 5 risks translated. Not credential stuffing against the identity provider, but a criminal logging into customer accounts with stolen passwords, like the incidents at companies you've read about. Block 2, trend arrows, risk scores against last quarter, what got better because of the money they approved, what got worse because of the money they didn't. This is how govern becomes real. Block 3, the asks, each top risk paired with its treatment in a dollar figure. Multi-factor everywhere, 400 a month removes our #1 attack path. Specific asks get approved, vague fear does not. What stays OFF the page, vulnerability ID tool names in the 40-slide appendix. Executives fund outcomes, not acronyms, link the full register in the footer for the one director who wants it. And include one line with real power, risks we are knowingly accepting this quarter. Nothing loosens a budget faster than a board reading, in writing, what happens if they don't. Block 4, where this leaves insurance and compliance, because the same register answers the insurer's questionnaire and the auditor's checklist. One document, three audiences. Last piece, a risk assessment that happens once, is a photograph of a moving object. The framework only pays off as a rhythm. The cadence that works: review the top risks quarterly, 30 minutes with the owners, scores and treatments updated, full reassessment yearly or after anything big, an acquisition, a new product, an incident. Every incident and near miss feeds back into the register. That's the recover function closing the loop. The register slowly becomes the institutional memory of what almost went wrong. Keep the old versions too. When the auditor or the insurer asks how your program matured, a register with 4 dated quarterly snapshots answers the question before they finish asking it. So here's the whole method in one breath. Inventory the crown jewels, score likelihood times impact, register with owners and treatments, heat map into a roadmap, and one business language page for the board, quarterly. The 2 days break down cleanly. Day 1, inventory in the morning, scoring workshop in the afternoon. Day 2, build the register and the heat map, then write the board page while it's fresh. Start Monday, book 2 days, open the spreadsheet, list 10 crown jewels. By Friday, you'll know more about your real risk than most companies twice your size. If this turned a scary assignment into a checklist, subscribe. We translate security frameworks into work you can actually finish. Now go list your crown jewels.